A Werewolf Shifter Romance, written by Amelia Hart. Chapter 1. When Warriors Fall. The scent of wildflowers and steel had always defined Kara Thornvale's mornings in the Valkyrie Shields. That particular dawn, 18 months ago, began no differently. She woke before sunrise in the barracks she shared with 5 other warriors, pulled on her leather training gear, and braided her dark hair tight against her skull. The routine brought comfort. The training grounds stretched behind Shadow Peak Castle, a vast expanse of packed dirt where 200 women gathered as the first rays of sunlight crept over the eastern mountains. They moved in perfect synchronization, executing the combat forms their Luna had drilled into them for a decade. Kyra was 26 then, standing in the second row with her practice sword. Every movement flowed into the next, a deadly dance choreographed by the woman who stood on the raised platform overlooking them all. Luna Valkyr Whitefang. Even in simple training leathers, she commanded absolute attention. Her platinum blonde hair caught the morning light, and her crystalline blue eyes missed nothing as they swept across her warriors. She was 32 years old, and possessed a reputation that made rival alphas think twice before testing King Darian's borders. The Silver Blade, they called her. "Higher guard, Bryn," Valkyr called out, her voice carrying effortlessly across the grounds. "Your opponent will exploit that opening." Bryn Stormweaver, a blonde warrior with quick feet, immediately corrected her stance. At 24, she was one of the youngest to earn her place among the shields. "Better. Now all of you listen." Valkyr descended from the platform, moving through the ranks. "Strength alone does not make a warrior. Any fool can swing a blade with force. What separates you from common soldiers is your refusal to yield, your ability to remain standing when every instinct screams at you to fall." She stopped beside Kara, and for a moment their eyes met. Kara had been 13 when her parents died in a border skirmish. She had been 14 when Valkyr found her living on the streets of the capital, half-starved and wholly feral. The Luna had seen potential where others saw only a broken child. "You never stop fighting," Valkyr continued, addressing everyone but looking at Kara. "Not for your king, not for your pack. You fight because you refuse to be less than you are meant to be." The words sank deep. Kara would remember them months later, when chains bit into her wrists. The session ended as the sun climbed higher. Warriors dispersed to break their fast, but Valkyr gestured for Kara to remain. They walked together toward the castle's eastern tower. "You executed the defensive sequence flawlessly today," Valkyr said as they climbed stone stairs. "Better than I did at your age." Kara felt warmth spread through her chest. Praise from the Luna was rare. "You taught me well." "I taught you what you were willing to learn. There is a difference." They reached the study, a circular room lined with maps. Valkyr moved to the window that overlooked the training grounds. "If something were to happen to me, the shields would need leadership." "You are not going anywhere," Kara protested. "None of us know what tomorrow brings. Promise me something. If anything happens, protect the others. Keep the sisterhood intact." The request felt heavy. "I promise, but nothing is going to happen." Valkyr smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "Strength takes many forms, little warrior. Remember that." 3 weeks later, everything shattered. It happened during morning training. Valkyr had just finished demonstrating a grappling technique when she suddenly staggered. Her hand went to her stomach, confusion crossing her features. Then she collapsed. Warriors surrounded their Luna, while others sprinted for castle healers. Kyra dropped to her knees beside Valkyr, whose face had gone ashen. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. "Get away!" Valkyr gasped. Seraphine, the red-haired second in command, pushed through the crowd. "Someone fetch the king. Now." To Valkyr she said more gently, "Stay with us. The healers are coming." Valkyr's eyes found Kyra's. Her lips moved, forming words almost too quiet to hear. "Do not trust the shadows." Then her eyes rolled back and she convulsed violently. The healers arrived within minutes but seemed baffled. Over the following days, Valkyr's condition deteriorated rapidly. She would wake for brief periods, lucid enough to speak, then slip back into fever dreams. Black veins spread across her skin. Her wolf became trapped beneath her flesh, unable to shift and heal her. "It is a wasting disease," the head healer announced grimly. We have seen nothing in recorded history. It attacks the connection between human and wolf, severing the bond that makes shifters whole. King Darien stood at his mate's bedside for 3 days without sleep. Kyra had never seen the Alpha King look so helpless. He was 34 years old, broad-shouldered and powerful, with a black beard and golden eyes that could command armies. But none of that mattered when watching his mate die. On the final night, a servant summoned Kyra. She entered the darkened chamber to find Valkyr alone, propped against pillows. "Come closer," Valkyr whispered. Kyra obeyed, taking the Luna's cold hand. The skin felt paper-thin. "I need you to remember something. 5 years ago, I gave you a gift in the sacred grove. That blessing will protect you when the time comes. Do not fear it." She coughed, flecks of blood appearing on her lips. "And Kyra, what I said about the shadows, I meant it. Not everyone in this castle is what they seem. Protect the sisters. Do not let them be scattered." "I will protect them," Kyra promised, throat tight. "Some battles cannot be won through strength alone." Her eyes began drifting closed. "Tell Darien I loved him beyond measure." Those were her final coherent words. By dawn, Luna Valkyr Whitefang was gone. The funeral drew nobles from across the kingdom. Kyra stood among her sister warriors in black leather armor. King Darien looked hollow, grief carving years into his face overnight. 3 days later, Seraphine called an assembly. 200 women gathered in the great hall. Seraphine stood at the front beside King Darien. "Our Luna is gone," Seraphine began. And in her wisdom, she left instructions. "His Majesty will explain." Darien stepped forward, holding a rolled parchment sealed with Valkyr's mark. His hands trembled as he broke the seal and read aloud. The letter ordered the dissolution of the Valkyrie shields. It claimed the kingdom was secure, borders peaceful, and the warriors should return home to build families. Silence crashed through the hall. Kyra felt the world tilt. Valkyr would never write such words. She had dedicated her life to building the shields. "It bears her seal," Seraphine said quietly. "His Majesty has verified the handwriting. This is our Luna's will." King Darien nodded, confirming it. "You have 1 week to collect belongings and depart," Seraphine continued. "The crown will provide compensation. You are dismissed." Kyra approached Seraphine afterward. "May I see the parchment?" Seraphine's green eyes hardened. "You question our Luna's will?" "I merely wish to see her words. The document is sealed in royal archives. Only His Majesty has access." "You should begin preparations to leave Kyra." Over the following days, the Valkyrie shields dispersed. Kyra lingered in the capital, taking work as a mercenary guard. She could not shake the conviction that something terrible had happened. 6 months later, the disappearances began. Former shields vanished from their posts. Within 3 months, 8 were missing. Kyra investigated, traveling to locations where women had last been seen. A pattern emerged. Each disappearance occurred in areas where Seraphine had recently visited. Then came the message from Tessa Ironheart, one of Kyra's closest companions. The parchment bore her unmistakable handwriting. "Kyra, I need your help urgently. Meet me at the abandoned Thornwood Tavern on the southern border. Come alone. I have information about the disappearances." Tessa. The Thornwood Tavern sat in disputed territory, burned out during a raid years prior. Kyra arrived at dusk. The tavern was abandoned. Its roof collapsed. She called for Tessa but received no answer. They came from all sides simultaneously. 12 men, all shifters, moving with military precision. Kyra's wolf surged forward and she met them with steel and fury. She fought as Valkyr had taught her, using speed and technique. She killed 3 outright. Disabled 5 more, but numbers told in the end. A blade opened her shoulder. Another caught her thigh. She stumbled, and one attacker got behind her, forcing a vial to her lips. Liquid wolfsbane burned down her throat. Her wolf screamed before falling silent. Darkness took her. She woke 3 days later in a wooden cage barely large enough to sit up in. Silver bars reinforced the structure, burning her skin. The scent of fear saturated the air. "Welcome to the Bloodstone Market," a scarred man said from outside her cage. You will fetch a decent price. Breeders are always in demand. Kara tested the bars despite the searing pain. They held firm. As her eyes adjusted to dim light, she recognized faces. 6 other women from the Valkyrie shields occupied cages near hers. Tessa was there, her face bruised and eyes hollow with guilt. They had used her to lure Kara. "I am sorry," Tessa mouthed silently. Kara did not respond. She spent 3 days observing everything. Guards rotated in shifts. The market operated under protection of local warlords. Escape attempts were punished with silver whips. On the 3rd night, a guard came to prepare them for auction. He carried a bowl of thick black paste that smelled of charcoal. Methodically, he covered the tattoo on each woman's left wrist, the mark identifying them as Valkyrie shields. When he reached Kyra's cage, she met his eyes steadily. "You are making a mistake," he laughed. "Fighters always say that." The paste covered her wrist completely, hiding the crescent moon and sword that marked her as one of Valkyr's chosen. As it dried, Kara felt a piece of her identity being erased. 3 days of captivity. No food, only brackish water twice daily. Her body weakened, but her resolve crystallized. The auction would come tomorrow, and whatever happened on that platform, Kyra Thornvale would not yield. Valkyr had taught her that much. Chapter 2. The Auction Block. The Bloodstone Market woke with the stench of unwashed bodies and desperation. Kyra heard the guards moving between cages long before dawn, their boots crunching on gravel as they prepared for the day's sales. She had not slept, could not sleep with silver burning her skin, and hunger gnawing at her belly. "Up, all of you!" A guard barked, slamming his club against the cage bars. The sound rang through Kara's skull. "Auction starts at midday. Anyone who causes trouble gets the whip." Around her, other captives stirred. Some whimpered. Others remained silent in the resigned way of those who had already surrendered. Kara refused to be either. She sat with her back straight despite the cramped space, her gray eyes tracking every movement in the market. The sun climbed slowly over the eastern horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and gold. Under different circumstances, Kara might have found it beautiful. Now, it merely marked the passage of time toward whatever fate awaited her on that platform. Tessa caught her eye from the adjacent cage. The dark-haired woman looked haunted, her face bruised purple along one cheekbone. She had stopped trying to apologize after the first day. Kyra had not forgiven her, but neither did she waste energy on anger. Survival required focus. Bryn occupied a cage 3 down from Kara's position. The young blonde warrior had always been quick to smile, quick to laugh during their training sessions. Now she simply stared at nothing, her blue eyes empty of their usual light. Seeing her broken hurt worse than the silver burns. The other 4 Valkyries were strangers to Kara, though she recognized their faces from assemblies. All of them bore the same tattoo beneath the black paste. All of them had been hunted, captured, caged. "Water." A raspy voice called from somewhere to Kara's left. "Please, just water." The guards ignored the plea. They moved through the rows with buckets of brackish liquid, splashing small amounts into wooden bowls shoved through cage openings. Kara drank what she was given, forcing herself to swallow despite the foul taste. Dehydration would kill her faster than starvation. By mid-morning, merchants began arriving. They walked through the market with the casual ease of those conducting ordinary business, examining captives as one might evaluate livestock. Kyra watched them through narrowed eyes, memorizing faces and scents. If she survived this, she would remember every single one. "That one there," a corpulent man in expensive silk said, pointing at a cage holding a young woman who could not be more than 17. "How much?" 20,000 gold, the market master replied. He was the scarred man who had greeted Kyra upon waking. "She shifts to a white wolf, very rare." The merchant haggled, eventually agreeing to 18,000. Guards unlocked the cage and dragged the girl out. She fought briefly, desperately, until they subdued her with a silver collar that smoked against her throat. Her screams echoed long after they hauled her away. Kyra's hands curled into fists. The silver bars prevented her from shifting, but her wolf snarled within her mind, demanding blood and vengeance. "Soon," she promised it silently. "We will have our chance soon." The auction platform stood in the market's center, a raised wooden structure that allowed buyers to see merchandise clearly. Kyra had seen slave markets before, during her time as a mercenary. She had always felt disgust at the practice. She had never imagined standing on one herself. Guards began selecting captives around noon. They pulled women from cages in no particular order, chaining them together in groups of 5. Kyra watched the process, noting which guards carried keys and which merely provided muscle. Information was a weapon, and she collected every scrap she could. When they reached her cage, 3 guards approached. They moved cautiously, having clearly been warned she was dangerous. "Easy now," one said, unlocking the door. "Come out slowly, and you do not get hurt." Kyra considered her options. She could fight now, attempt to overpower 3 men while weakened and weaponless. The odds were terrible, or she could wait for a better opportunity. Patience had never been her strongest virtue, but Valkyr had drilled tactical thinking into every Valkyrie. She crawled from the cage, her muscles screaming in protest after days of confinement. The guards immediately clamped silver manacles around her wrists, connecting them to a chain. They added her to a line with 4 other women, none of whom she recognized. The walk to the platform took only minutes, but each step felt weighted with significance. This was the moment. Whatever happened next would determine whether she lived as a slave or died fighting for freedom. The platform's wooden boards were stained dark, whether from weather or blood, Kyra could not tell. The market master stood at the center, a ledger in one hand and a cruel smile on his scarred face. Behind him, perhaps 100 potential buyers gathered, their expressions ranging from bored to eager. "Welcome, honored guests," the market master announced, his voice carrying across the crowd. "Today we present exceptional merchandise, strong backs, fertile wombs, and several with notable bloodlines." Kyra's stomach turned. He spoke of women as if they were horses for breeding. Around her, the other captives trembled. One began crying softly. "First lot," the master continued, gesturing to the line. 5 females, ages ranging from 19 to 30. We begin bidding at 10,000 gold for the group. Hands rose immediately. The master pointed to bidders, calling out increases. 15,000, 18,000, 20,000 gold. Kyra scanned the crowd, searching for any weakness, any opportunity. Most buyers wore fine clothes and carried themselves with the arrogance of wealth. A few looked rougher, mercenaries or traders who dealt in flesh. All of them had one thing in common. They saw her as property. 22,000, a voice called from the back. A massive man with a shaved head and tribal scarring pushed forward. "And I want that one specifically." He pointed directly at Kyra. The market master's smile widened. "Ah, Torvin. I thought you might be interested. This female has fire. Killed 3 of my men during capture." "Good," Torvin rumbled. "I prefer them with spirit. Makes the breaking more satisfying." Something cold slithered down Kyra's spine. She had heard of Torvin. He operated in the border regions, buying breeders and working them until they produced strong pups or died trying. Few of his purchases survived more than 2 years. 22,000 for the lot, the master called. "Do I hear 25? Silence. Going once." Kyra tensed. If no one bid higher, she would be Torvin's property within moments. Her wolf snarled, throwing itself against the silver-induced cage in her mind. Not this. Anything but this. Going twice, she gauged the distance to Torvin. 20 feet, perhaps. If she moved fast, if she caught him by surprise, she might reach him before guards intervened. The chain connecting her to the other captives would slow her, but rage could compensate for impediment. Going 3! A scent hit Kyra's nostrils, cutting through the stench of the market. Pine and winter storms, power barely contained. Her head snapped toward the source, and her breath caught in her throat. A man stood at the edge of the crowd, tall and imposing even without moving. He wore a dark traveling cloak with the hood pulled low, but Kyra could see the strong line of his jaw, could see golden eyes that seemed to glow with inner fire. Everything about him screamed dominance, authority that made every wolf in the vicinity automatically aware of his presence. The market went silent. Buyers turned, recognition and fear flickering across their faces. Even the market master paled slightly. The man pushed back his hood, revealing shoulder-length black hair and a beard that framed features carved from stone. Kyra knew that face. Every citizen of the kingdom knew that face. King Darien Whitefang. The Alpha King himself stood in the Bloodstone Market, his golden eyes fixed on the platform. Fixed, specifically, on Kyra. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Why was he here? The market operated in disputed territory, technically outside his jurisdiction. Kings did not personally intervene in matters of slavery, no matter how distasteful they found the practice. He should not have been there. Kings did not ride into outlaw markets on a whim. 2 weeks earlier, his spies had brought him rumors of Valkyrie tattoos scorched from captive skin and Seraphine's seal appearing in ledgers that should never have touched slaver hands. Darien had followed that trail himself, unwilling to trust anyone else with a threat that stank of Valkyr's legacy being gutted. Darien's gaze moved to her wrists, where sweat had begun dissolving the black paste covering her tattoo. The edge of the crescent moon symbol peeked through, just visible in the afternoon light. His expression changed. The controlled neutrality shattered, replaced by something fierce and terrible. His nostrils flared as he drew in her scent, and Kara saw recognition bloom in those golden eyes. He knew. Somehow, he knew what she was. Sold to Torvin for 22... The market master began. No! The single word from Darien cut through the air with the force of absolute command. His alpha voice rolled over the crowd, making every shifter present instinctively bow their heads in submission. Even Kyra felt the weight of it pressing against her consciousness. The market master recovered quickly, though his hands shook as he gripped his ledger. Your Majesty, we are honored by your presence, but the sale is concluded. Torvin has won the bid fairly. I was not asking permission. Darien moved through the crowd, which parted before him as water before a ship's prow. Release her. Now. The rules of the market do not apply to me. Darien reached the platform and climbed the steps with fluid grace. Power radiated from him in waves that made Kyra's wolf simultaneously want to submit and to stand tall. I am Alpha King of these lands and all lands within 500 miles. Your market operates at my sufferance. Do you wish to test whether that sufferance continues? The threat hung heavy in the air. The market master looked to his guards, but they refused to meet his eyes. No one wanted to challenge an Alpha King, especially not one whose reputation for ruthlessness was well earned. Torvin, however, stepped forward. With respect, Your Majesty, I have purchased these females legally. You cannot simply... Darien moved faster than Kara's eyes could track. One moment he stood several feet from Torvin. The next, his hand wrapped around the larger man's throat, lifting him off the ground as if he weighed nothing. I can do whatever I wish, Darien said quietly, his voice more terrifying for its calmness. And what I wish is for you to leave. Now. Unless you would prefer I demonstrate why challenging an Alpha King is unwise. He released Torvin, who stumbled backward, gasping. The man looked at Kara with furious, hungry eyes, but he did not protest further. He knew when he was outmatched. Darien turned to the market master. Keys, for all 7 of them. 7? The master's confusion was genuine. The Valkyries. I can smell their particular scent from here. You have 7 of my warriors in these cages. Release them immediately, or I start killing slavers. The master's face went white. He fumbled for keys at his belt, nearly dropping them in his haste. Of course, Your Majesty. Of course. I had no idea they were... You knew exactly what they were. Darien's voice dropped to a growl. That is why you covered their marks. Release them or die where you stand. Kara watched, stunned, as guards scrambled to unlock her manacles. The silver fell away, leaving red welts on her wrists. Her wolf surged forward, finally free of the suppressant effects. She could shift now if needed. Darien approached her directly, ignoring the other captives entirely. His golden eyes searched her face, and something passed between them that Kyra could not name. Recognition, certainly, but also something deeper, a connection that made her skin prickle with awareness. He reached for her wrist, his touch surprisingly gentle as he wiped away the remaining paste. The full tattoo emerged. The crescent moon crossed by a sword, with the name Valkyr's Shield inscribed in elegant script beneath. Darian's jaw clenched, a muscle ticked in his cheek. When he spoke, his voice came out rough with barely suppressed emotion. You were one of hers. It was not a question, but Kara answered anyway. Yes, my king. How long have you been here? 3 days. His eyes closed briefly, as if absorbing a blow. When they opened again, they burned with cold fury. He turned to face the crowd, his voice rising to carry across the entire market. Let it be known. The Valkyrie shields are under my protection. Any who harm them, trade them, or hold them captive will answer to me personally. I will find you. I will hunt you. And I will make you pray for death, long before I grant it. Silence. Then chaos erupted. Buyers fled. Merchants scrambled to disassociate themselves from the market's operations. The master himself had vanished, likely already running for whatever hole he could hide in. Darian's guards, who had apparently accompanied him, but remained hidden until needed, emerged to secure the area. They moved through the cages systematically, releasing the 6 other Valkyries and providing them with cloaks to cover their torn clothing. Kyra stood on the platform, watching it all unfold. Her mind spun with questions. Why had Darian come here? How had he known to look for them? And most pressingly, what would happen now? Darian returned to her side. Can you walk? Yes. Good. We leave immediately. This place will be ash by nightfall. He paused, his gaze softening slightly. I am sorry for what happened to you, to all of you. Kara met his eyes. Save your apologies, Your Majesty. Just get us home. Something that might have been respect flickered across his features. As you command, warrior. He offered her his arm, and after a moment's hesitation, Kyra took it. Together, they descended from the platform where she had nearly been sold to the highest bidder. The ride home would take 5 days. Kyra suspected those days would change everything. Chapter 3. Shadows and Suspicion. The journey to Shadow Peak Castle stretched across 5 days of mountain roads and forest paths. Kyra had expected forced marches and minimal rest, the efficient military transport of rescued prisoners. Instead, King Darian provided 7 horses, warm cloaks, and supplies that would have suited honored guests rather than former slaves. She rode at the front of their small caravan, positioned to Darian's right. The arrangement felt deliberate, though the king had not explained his reasoning. Behind them, the 6 other rescued Valkyries followed in pairs, with royal guards bringing up the rear. The guards were respectful, professional, treating the women as warriors rather than victims. Kyra appreciated that more than she could express. The first day passed in near silence. The rescued women were too exhausted, too traumatized to manage conversation beyond necessities. Kyra herself felt hollowed out, running on instinct and stubbornness. Only when they made camp that first evening did she truly begin to process what had happened. Tessa approached the fire where Kyra sat, her movements hesitant. The dark-haired woman carried visible guilt in every line of her body. I did not know, Tessa said quietly, settling onto a log several feet away. When they took me, when they said they would kill my brother unless I sent that message, I thought they only wanted you. I did not realize it was part of something larger. Kara studied her former friend. Tessa's face bore bruises that were beginning to yellow, and her hands trembled slightly as she held them toward the warmth. She had always been strong, capable, seeing her broken cut deeper than Kara wanted to admit. They used you, Kara said finally, as they used all of us. Does that make it forgivable? No, but it makes it understandable. Kara poked at the fire with a stick, watching sparks rise into the darkening sky. Your brother. Is he safe? I do not know. They claimed to be holding him, but I never saw proof. It could have been a lie. When we return to the capital, we will find out. If he lives, we will locate him. If he is dead, we will make those responsible pay. Tessa's eyes glistened with unshed tears. I do not deserve your mercy. Mercy has nothing to do with it. We are sisters of the shield. Whether the order officially exists or not, we protect our own. Movement caught Kyra's attention. Bryn and 2 other Valkyries had drifted closer, drawn by the conversation. They settled around the fire, creating a small circle of familiar faces in the wilderness. Did anyone else notice the pattern? Bryn asked, her voice still carrying that hollow quality from the market. Of where we were taken. Kyra sat straighter. What pattern? I was captured near Thornwood, Bryn said. That is where Seraphine was 3 days before my disappearance. She claimed to be visiting family in the region. I was taken from the eastern border. Another warrior added. Her name was Lissa, a woman with close-cropped auburn hair and sharp features. Seraphine had passed through conducting some kind of inspection for the king. Or so she said. The pieces began fitting together in Kyra's mind, forming a picture she did not want to see, but could no longer ignore. Tessa, where were you when they took you? The southern farms, near the vineyards. And Seraphine. Tessa's eyes widened as understanding dawned. She had been there, 2 weeks prior. She said she was arranging wine supplies for the castle. Kyra stood abruptly, her wolf stirring beneath her skin. We need to speak with the king. Darian had set his camp slightly apart from the main group, a habit born of kingship that required both presence and distance. 2 guards stood watch outside his tent, but they stepped aside when they recognized Kyra. She found him studying maps by lamplight, his black beard catching gold highlights from the flame. He looked up as she entered, and something flickered in his golden eyes. Surprise, perhaps. Or something warmer that Kyra chose not to examine too closely. Kyra, is something wrong? That depends on your definition. She moved closer to the makeshift table, where detailed charts showed the kingdom's territories. The women who were captured, they all have something in common. Seraphine had visited each location shortly before the disappearances. Darian's expression went carefully neutral. Seraphine travels frequently on my behalf. She handles diplomatic matters, supply chains, inspections. Convenient cover for hunting down scattered Valkyries. That is a serious accusation. It is a serious pattern. Kyra pointed to locations on the map. Thornwood, the eastern border, the southern farms. I was taken here, at the old Thornwood Tavern. Seraphine visited all those places within weeks of warriors vanishing. Darian set down the quill he had been holding. Seraphine has served loyally for 15 years. She stood at Valkyr's side through countless battles. She mourned my mate's death as deeply as anyone. Did she? Kyra met his eyes steadily. Or did she mourn the end of living in Valkyr's shadow? The king's jaw tightened. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting that we should question coincidences. Valkyr dies of a mysterious illness. Seraphine immediately produces a document ordering the shield's dissolution. Within months, warriors begin disappearing from locations Seraphine recently visited. Either your advisor is catastrophically unlucky, or she is something far worse. Darian stood, his full height making the tent feel suddenly smaller. Power radiated from him in waves that made Kyra's wolf want to either submit or challenge. She did neither, holding her ground despite every instinct screaming otherwise. You think Seraphine betrayed Valkyr, he said quietly. I think someone did. And I think that same someone orchestrated the capture of warriors who might ask uncomfortable questions about their Luna's death. What uncomfortable questions? Kyra took a breath, steadying herself. In her final moments, Valkyr warned me about shadows, about not trusting everyone in the castle. I thought she was delirious at the time, but now I wonder, what if she knew she was being poisoned? What if she suspected Seraphine but could not prove it before the illness took her? The king's expression transformed. The careful neutrality shattered, replaced by something raw and terrible. Poisoned? Valkyr was examined by 3 healers. They all confirmed a wasting disease. Healers can be deceived, especially if they are looking for natural causes rather than deliberate murder. You cannot know this. But doubt had crept into Darian's voice, a crack in his certainty. No, Kyra admitted. I cannot, but I can investigate. Let me look into Seraphine's activities. Let me trace where she went and when. If I am wrong, I will publicly apologize and accept whatever punishment you deem appropriate. But if I am right, Your Majesty, then your mate's killer walks free in your castle, wearing the face of a loyal advisor. Silence stretched between them. Outside, Kyra could hear the camp settling for the night, low voices and the crackle of fires. Inside this tent, the air felt heavy with implications that could tear the kingdom apart. You loved her, Darian said finally. Valkyr, I could see it in how you fought at the market, how you stood tall even when they tried to break you. She marked you as special, did she not? She was my Luna, my mentor, the closest thing to a mother I had after mine died. Then we have something in common. We both lost her, and we both want the truth, no matter how painful that truth might be. He moved to the tent's entrance, calling for one of his guards. When the man appeared, Darian gave crisp orders. Send riders ahead to the castle. I want all records of Seraphine's travels over the past 2 years compiled and ready for review upon our arrival. Also, discreetly place guards on her movements. She is not to leave the castle grounds until I give permission. The guard saluted and departed. Darian turned back to Kyra, and the look in his eyes made something tighten in her chest. If you are wrong about this, he said, it will damage my relationship with one of my most trusted advisors. But if you are right, then I have failed Valkyr in the worst possible way. I will have let her murderer not only live, but thrive in positions of power. We will find the truth, Kyra promised. One way or another. Yes, we will. He paused, then added more softly, she chose well when she trained you. The words hit harder than they should have. Kyra bowed her head briefly. A gesture of respect between warriors, rather than subject to king. I will not let her down again. You never did. The second night brought them to an inn nestled in the mountains. Darian secured rooms for everyone, insisting the women rest properly after their ordeal. Kyra found herself sharing a room with Tessa and Bryn, the 3 of them finally able to bathe and sleep in actual beds. He watches you, Bryn observed as they settled in. The young warrior had regained some of her color after proper food and rest. The king. His eyes follow you constantly. He watches all of us, Kyra replied, though she knew it was not entirely true. She had felt Darian's attention on her specifically, heavy and considering, not the way he watches you. Tessa's tone carried something between amusement and concern. Be careful, Kyra. Kings are not known for their restraint when they want something. He just lost his mate. He is not looking for anything beyond loyalty from his warriors. Keep telling yourself that, Bryn said with a faint smile. But I saw how he carried himself at the market. That was not a king rescuing subjects. That was something far more personal. Kyra did not respond. She could not, because part of her recognized the truth in their words. Something had shifted between her and Darian the moment he recognized her tattoo, an awareness that went beyond duty or grief. But she would not examine it too closely, not when Valkyr's memory still hung over them both like a ghost. The third day found them riding through dense forest, the canopy so thick that sunlight barely penetrated. Kyra had fallen back slightly, letting Darian take the lead while she rode beside Tessa. They spoke in low voices about the old training routines, the sisters they had lost, the future that seemed impossibly uncertain. Then, Kyra caught a scent on the wind that made her wolf bristle, pine and musk, but wrong somehow, too strong, too deliberate. We are being watched, she murmured to Tessa. The other woman's nostrils flared as she processed the information. How many? Cannot tell. At least 3, possibly more. Kyra urged her horse forward until she rode alongside Darian. We have company in the trees, trackers, possibly scouts. The king's expression did not change, but his hand moved subtly to rest on the sword at his hip. How long? Just notice them. They are keeping pace but not approaching. Roderick's territory borders this region. He may have patrols out. And if Seraphine has been feeding him our movements, he would be a fool not to keep eyes on every road we ride, Kyra said. Fools do not orchestrate coordinated abductions across half a kingdom. Or he may have heard about your visit to the Bloodstone Market and wants to know why the Alpha King personally intervened in a slave auction. Darian's jaw tightened. Alpha Roderick Vane has always been ambitious, but he would not dare move against me openly. Openly, no. But Seraphine's pattern of travel might extend beyond random coincidence. If she was coordinating the capture of Valkyries, someone had to be buying them. Someone had to have a use for trained warriors being sold as breeders. The implications hung in the air between them. If Roderick was involved, if Seraphine had been working with him, then this conspiracy went far deeper than simple revenge or jealousy. It spoke to plans for invasion, for destabilizing the kingdom by removing its elite female fighters. "When we reach the castle," Darian said quietly, "you will have full access to conduct your investigation. I will assign you 2 trusted guards and whatever resources you require. But Kyra, if you find evidence that Seraphine and Roderick conspired to murder Valkyr, to kidnap warriors, to undermine my throne, I will need you to be absolutely certain before we act. Because accusation without proof could start a war." "Precisely." They rode in silence after that, both lost in thoughts of conspiracy and betrayal. Behind them, the other Valkyries remained alert, their warrior instincts sharpened despite their recent trauma. Ahead, the mountains rose higher, marking the approach to Shadow Peak. That night, they camped in a clearing that offered good sightlines in all directions. Kyra volunteered for first watch, too restless to sleep. She sat on a fallen log at the camp's perimeter, letting her enhanced senses expand into the darkness. Footsteps approached from behind. She recognized Darian's scent before he spoke. "You should rest," he said, settling onto the log beside her. "Tomorrow will be demanding. So will every day after that. Rest can wait. You are very much as she was. Stubborn, unwilling to show weakness even when exhausted." Kyra glanced at him. In the moonlight, his features seemed carved from shadow and silver. "I am not Valkyr. No. You are yourself. But you carry her legacy forward in how you move, how you think. She would be proud of what you have become." The words struck deep, finding vulnerabilities Kyra usually kept buried. She would be ashamed that I allowed myself to be captured, that I could not prevent what happened to the others. She would understand that you survived impossible odds and still found the strength to protect your sisters. Darian's voice carried quiet conviction. "Survival is not weakness, Kyra. It is the ultimate act of defiance against those who try to destroy you." They sat in comfortable silence for a time, watching the stars wheel overhead. Kyra found herself hyper-aware of Darian's presence, of the warmth radiating from his body despite the night chill, of how close they sat, shoulders nearly touching. "Why did you come to the market?" she asked suddenly. "How did you even know to look there?" "I received information. An anonymous message delivered to the castle 3 days ago, detailing the location and claiming that warriors of the shields were being sold. I thought it might be a trap, but I could not ignore the possibility. Someone wanted you to find us." "Yes. The question is why, and who?" Kyra turned that over in her mind. Someone had betrayed the slave operation, had ensured the king arrived in time to rescue them. But who would do that? And what did they stand to gain? "Perhaps someone in Roderick's organization grew a conscience," she suggested. "Perhaps. Or perhaps someone wanted me away from the castle while they arranged something else." Darian met her eyes. "Either way, we will find answers. I promise you that." The intensity in his gaze made Kyra's breath catch. For a moment, she thought he might reach out, might close the distance between them. But then he stood, breaking the spell. "Get some rest," he said. "I will take the watch. You are the king. You need sleep more than I do. I am the king, which means I decide when I sleep." But there was no command in his tone, only weary humor. "Please, Kyra, let me do this. Let me keep watch while you rest. It is small recompense for failing to protect you and the others these past months." She wanted to argue. Instead, she found herself nodding. "Wake me in 3 hours for second watch." "I will." Kyra returned to her bedroll, but sleep took longer to find than she expected. She kept thinking about the king sitting alone in the darkness, keeping vigil over warriors he barely knew. Kept thinking about the way he said her name, the weight he gave it. Kept thinking about things she had no business considering, while Valkyr's memory still felt so fresh. The 4th day brought them within sight of Shadow Peak's towers. The castle rose from the mountain like a natural extension of the rock, its gray walls seeming to grow from the stone itself. Kyra had not realized how much she missed it until she saw those familiar battlements again. Home. Despite everything, this was still home. They entered through the main gates as the sun set, painting the courtyard in shades of crimson and gold. People gathered to stare, word having spread that the king returned with rescued Valkyries. Kyra saw recognition on many faces, saw shock and relief, and standing at the top of the castle steps, her red hair catching the last rays of sunlight, stood Seraphine Ravenmore. Her green eyes widened as she took in the 7 women on horseback. Her face cycled through emotions too quickly to parse. Surprise, confusion, and for just a heartbeat, something that looked like fear. Then her expression smoothed into careful neutrality. "Your Majesty, welcome home. We received your messages. Rooms have been prepared for our returned warriors." "Seraphine," Darian said, his tone giving nothing away, "we have much to discuss. Attend me in my study in 1 hour." "Of course, Your Majesty." Kyra watched the exchange carefully, watched how Seraphine's hands clenched briefly at her sides, how her breathing quickened slightly when her eyes met Kara's. "Yes," Kara thought grimly, "you should be afraid, because we are coming for you now. And this time, we will not stop until we have the truth." Chapter 4. Unveiled Truths. Kyra and the 6 rescued Valkyries were given quarters in the warriors' wing of Shadow Peak Castle, the same halls they had once occupied when the Order stood at full strength. The rooms felt haunted by absence. 200 women had lived here once. Now, only 7 returned to find their belongings exactly as they had left them 18 months prior. Someone had maintained the spaces with care. Dust did not coat the furniture. The practice weapons mounted on walls gleamed with fresh oil. Even the bedding smelled of lavender sachets recently replaced. "Who did this?" Bryn asked, running her fingers along a shelf that held her collection of river stones. Each one represented a victory in training, a tradition Valkyr had started. "Who kept our rooms ready when the Order no longer existed?" Tessa found the answer in her own chamber. A note lay on the pillow, written in Valkyr's elegant script. It must have been placed there before her death, a final instruction to the castle stewards. "Maintain these quarters," Tessa read aloud as the others gathered. "The shields may return sooner than expected. When they do, they should find home waiting. Signed, Luna Valkyr Whitefang." The words struck Kara with the force of revelation. Valkyr had known. Somehow their Luna had suspected the dissolution order might not be legitimate. She had prepared for their return even as she lay dying. "She was trying to tell us," Kara said quietly. "All those warnings about shadows, about not trusting everyone. She knew Seraphine would move against the Order. She just could not prove it before the illness took her, or before the poison did," Lyssa corrected grimly. The auburn-haired warrior had found her armor cleaned and repaired, hanging ready for use. "Because the more I think about it, the more convinced I become that our Luna did not die naturally." They gathered in Kyra's room, the 7 warriors forming a council of their own. The door was barred, and Bryn checked the walls for listening holes, a paranoid precaution that felt entirely justified given recent events. "We need to move carefully," Kyra said, settling into the strategy that Valkyr had drilled into them. "Seraphine is clever. If she orchestrated Valkyr's death and our dispersal, she will not have left obvious evidence." "But she made mistakes," Tessa countered. "The pattern of captures, the timing of her visits to each location. That is evidence, even if circumstantial. The king has promised me resources to investigate. 2 guards, access to records, authority to question staff. We start there." A knock interrupted them. Kyra opened the door to find a young page, barely 14, standing nervously in the corridor. "Lady Kara? His Majesty requests your presence in the training yard. He says you promised him combat instruction." The others exchanged knowing looks. Bryn smirked. "The king wants private lessons. How interesting." "It is tactical exchange," Kara said firmly, though heat crept up her neck. "He wishes to learn techniques Valkyr mastered." "Of course, purely tactical." Tessa's tone dripped with amusement. Kara left them to their speculation, and followed the page through the castle's winding corridors. The training yard occupied the eastern courtyard, a space large enough for 50 warriors to spar simultaneously. Now, it stood empty except for King Darian. He had removed his formal attire, wearing simple leather training gear that displayed the powerful build of a man who had fought battles rather than merely commanded them from afar. His black hair was pulled back, and his golden eyes tracked her approach with unsettling focus. "You came," he said, tossing her a practice sword. Kara caught it reflexively, testing the weight. Well balanced, sharp enough to cut, but not to kill. "You gave an order. I obey my king, even when you disagree with him? Especially then. Loyalty means nothing if extended only when convenient." Something flickered in his expression. Approval, perhaps, or something warmer. Valkyr said something similar once. She told me that true loyalty is tested not in times of peace, but when following orders costs you something precious. She was wise. She was many things. Darian moved into a ready stance. "Show me the Eastern defensive sequence, the one you executed perfectly the morning she died." The request hit harder than Kyra expected. That sequence had been Valkyr's signature move, a flowing combination of parries and counterstrikes designed to turn an opponent's aggression against them. Teaching it to Darian felt intimate, almost sacred, but she had promised. They began slowly, Kara demonstrating each position while Darian mirrored her movements. He was skilled, she realized quickly. His footwork was excellent, his balance near perfect. He simply lacked the refinements that came from training under someone as masterful as Valkyr. "Shift your weight forward more," Kara instructed, moving to adjust his stance. The moment her hands touched his shoulders, awareness crackled between them. She could feel the heat of his skin through the leather, could sense his wolf stirring in response to her proximity. She stepped back quickly. "Try the sequence again." Darian complied, executing the moves with improved precision. They worked through the sequence 5 times, then 10, until he performed it flawlessly. "Better," Kara said. Valkyr would have approved. Would she? Darian lowered his sword, his gaze intense. Or would she have questioned why I ask you specifically for instruction when I have a dozen other warriors who could teach me? I do not presume to know what our Luna would think. But you do know. I can see it in how carefully you maintain distance between us, in how you refuse to meet my eyes for longer than necessary. He moved closer, his voice dropping. "You think I am dishonoring her memory by wanting to be near you." The accusation stung because it contained truth. Your mate died 18 months ago. Grief does not fade so quickly. It does not fade at all. It merely changes shape. Darian set down his practice sword. I loved Valkyr with everything I was. When she died, part of me died with her. I thought I would never feel anything beyond that emptiness again. Your Majesty, then I saw you standing on that auction platform, chains burning your wrists, and something inside me roared to life, not because you reminded me of her, but because you are you, strong where she was gentle, fierce where she was diplomatic. You are not Valkyr's replacement, Kara. You are something entirely new. Kyra's breath caught. This is not appropriate. Nothing about any of this is appropriate. But when has appropriateness ever mattered to warriors? We live by different rules, you and I. We understand that tomorrow is promised to no one. You are my king, and you are the woman who makes me want to be more than just a grieving widower wearing a crown. He reached out, his fingers brushing her cheek with devastating gentleness. Tell me you feel nothing. Tell me this awareness between us is one-sided. If you can say that truthfully, I will never mention it again. Kyra wanted to lie, wanted to maintain the distance that duty and propriety demanded. But she had never been good at deception. I cannot say that, she whispered. But wanting something does not make it right. No, it makes it human. Darian's thumb traced her cheekbone, sending shivers down her spine. Or, in our case, wolf. Before Kara could respond, footsteps echoed across the training yard. They stepped apart quickly, though not quickly enough. Seraphine stood at the yard's entrance, her green eyes taking in the scene with calculating precision. Your Majesty, she said smoothly, forgive the interruption, but the council has assembled as you requested. They await your presence in the throne room. Darian's expression shuddered, becoming the mask of kingship once more. Thank you, Seraphine. I will attend shortly. And Lady Kara, how fortunate to see you restored to us. When you have time, I would very much like to speak with you privately. There are matters regarding the Order's dissolution that may interest you. Kyra met the red-haired woman's eyes steadily. I would welcome such a conversation. Excellent. Shall we say tomorrow morning? My chambers, after breakfast. I will be there. Seraphine departed with a graceful bow, leaving tension thick in her wake. She knows we suspect her, Kara said once they were alone again. Of course she does. Seraphine has survived court politics for 15 years. She reads people the way you read battle formations. Darian retrieved his sword. Be careful tomorrow. Do not meet with her alone. I am not afraid of her. You should be. If she killed Valkyr, she will not hesitate to kill you too. That evening, Kara met with Tessa in the castle's archives. The head librarian, an elderly wolf named Cedric, had served the crown for 40 years. He remembered when Kyra was a child, and his loyalty to Valkyr's memory ran deep. The records you requested, he said, producing 3 leather-bound ledgers. Every journey Seraphine has taken on behalf of the crown over the past 2 years. Destinations, duration, stated purposes. Kyra and Tessa pored over the entries, cross-referencing them with the locations where warriors had disappeared. The pattern became undeniable. Every single capture location corresponded to a place Seraphine had visited within the month prior. She was scouting, Tessa said, her finger tracing routes on a map, finding isolated warriors, identifying their routines, reporting back to whoever was organizing the captures. Roderick, Kara supplied. It has to be. He has the resources to fund a slave operation. He has the ambition to want the kingdom weakened. And look here. She pointed to an entry from 3 years ago. Seraphine made 3 trips to Shadowfen territory in the span of 6 months. The stated purpose was trade negotiations. But those negotiations never resulted in any agreements. She was meeting with him, planning. They worked through the night, building a timeline. The trips to Shadowfen started 3 years ago. 8 months later, Valkyr became ill. 3 weeks after her death, the dissolution order appeared. Within 6 months, warriors began disappearing. We need more than travel records, Kyra said, as dawnlight began filtering through the archive windows. We need proof of communication between Seraphine and Roderick. Letters, witnesses, something concrete. There may be another avenue. Cedric had been listening quietly. The Luna maintained private correspondence. After her death, her personal effects were sealed by order of His Majesty. But the seal can be broken with royal permission. Kara felt hope kindle. Valkyr kept journals? She kept everything. Letters received, copies of letters sent, daily observations. If she suspected treachery, she would have documented it. The next morning, Kara attended Seraphine's chambers with Bryn as her escort. The red-haired woman received them in a sitting room decorated with expensive tapestries and imported furniture. She offered tea with impeccable courtesy. I am glad you survived your ordeal, Seraphine said, settling into a chair with elegant ease. When I heard about the captures, I feared the worst. Did you? Kara accepted the tea, but did not drink. That seems odd, considering you dissolved the order specifically to disperse us. Following our Luna's wishes was not easy, but duty demanded it. Show me the letter. The one ordering dissolution. Seraphine's smile did not waver. That document is sealed in royal archives. Only His Majesty has access. Convenient. No one can verify its authenticity. Are you suggesting I forged our Luna's final command? The words were spoken lightly, but steel underlay them. I am suggesting that you profit greatly from the shield's destruction. You retain your position as the king's trusted advisor. You face no competition from trained warriors who might question your counsel. And you certainly do not have to worry about us investigating Valkyr's death. Seraphine set down her teacup with deliberate care. You tread on dangerous ground, Kyra. I walk the ground our Luna bled on. If that makes me dangerous, so be it. Valkyr died of illness. 3 healers confirmed it. Healers see what they are told to look for. But poison that mimics wasting disease, that attacks the bond between human and wolf, that exists. Rare, but attainable for someone with the right connections. The mask slipped. Just for a heartbeat, Seraphine's expression twisted into something ugly before smoothing back to neutrality. You accuse me of murdering my closest friend based on speculation and grief. I accuse you of nothing, yet. Kara stood. But I will find the truth. And when I do, if you are innocent, I will apologize publicly. If you are guilty, I will see you answer for every crime. Bold words from a warrior with no order to back her. I do not need an order. I have the king's authority to investigate. And I have 34 sisters who will help me uncover what you have done. Kara left before Seraphine could respond, but she felt the woman's gaze burning into her back. The game was fully in motion now. One of them would win. One of them would fall, and Kara was determined it would not be her. Chapter 5. The Evidence Unveiled. Tessa found the correspondence in Valkyr's sealed chambers 3 days after their confrontation with Seraphine. King Darian had granted Kara permission to examine the Luna's personal effects, and what they discovered among the carefully preserved documents changed everything. The chamber had remained untouched since Valkyr's death, preserved as a memorial. Dust motes danced in shafts of afternoon light filtering through tall windows. Her armor still hung on its stand, polished to mirror brightness. Her personal journal sat on the writing desk, its leather cover embossed with the royal seal. Kyra's hands trembled as she opened it. Reading Valkyr's private thoughts felt like desecration, but necessity outweighed sentiment. The first entries were mundane. Training observations, diplomatic notes, meal preferences and weather patterns. But 6 months before her death, the tone shifted. Seraphine has grown distant. Valkyr had written in her elegant script. She no longer meets my eyes during council sessions. When I ask her opinion on matters, she defers more than is her nature. Something has changed, though I cannot identify what. Darian assures me I imagine things. That stress from recent border skirmishes makes me suspicious. Perhaps he is right. Yet my instincts insist otherwise. Kyra read further, her stomach tightening with each passage. Found Seraphine in my private study yesterday. She claimed to be searching for a tactical scroll I had requested, but I made no such request. The cabinet containing my personal correspondence had been opened. When questioned, she became defensive. I begin to wonder if my paranoia serves a purpose after all. Woke today feeling ill. Stomach cramps, dizziness, an odd tingling in my fingers. The symptoms passed by midday. Seraphine brought me tea when she heard of my discomfort. How thoughtful of her. The entries grew more concerning. Valkyr documented increasing illness, but also growing suspicion. She had begun testing her food before consuming it, storing samples in sealed containers. She had noted Seraphine's frequent absences from the castle, journeys that seemed to have no diplomatic purpose. I fear I am dying, one entry read. But more than that, I fear I am being killed. The pattern is too consistent. I feel ill only after consuming food or drink that Seraphine has prepared or handled. Yet I have no proof, and Darian dismisses my concerns as fever dreams. How can I accuse my oldest friend of murder based on suspicion alone? The final entry, written in shaking script, made Kyra's vision blur with tears. If anyone reads this after my death, know that I did not go peacefully into the night. Someone has poisoned me over months, perhaps years. I suspect Seraphine, though the evidence remains circumstantial. I have instructed my solicitor to preserve my chambers exactly as they are. Hidden in the eastern wall behind the tapestry is a compartment. Within it lies the proof I could not present while living. Use it wisely. Protect the shields. They are my legacy, and someone will try to destroy them. Do not let that happen. Signed, Valkyr Whitefang, Luna of Shadowpeak. Knowing she has been betrayed by one she trusted, Kara moved immediately to the eastern wall. The tapestry depicted a hunting scene, wolves running beneath a full moon. She pulled it aside to reveal smooth stone. "Help me search," she told Tessa, Bryn, and Lissa, who had accompanied her. "There must be a hidden mechanism." They ran fingers along the mortar, pressed individual stones, searched for irregularities. It was Bryn who found it, a stone set slightly deeper than the others. When pushed, it clicked inward. A section of wall swung open with surprising smoothness, revealing a small cavity. Inside lay 3 items: a sealed vial containing dark residue, a stack of letters bound with black ribbon, and a leather pouch filled with gold coins bearing the crest of Shadowfen. Kyra opened the vial first. The residue had a faintly sweet smell that made her wolf recoil instinctively. Poison. This was Valkyr's proof. A sample of whatever had killed her. The letters proved even more damning. Written in Seraphine's distinctive hand, they detailed a conspiracy spanning 3 years. Communications with Alpha Roderick of Shadowfen outlined plans to eliminate Valkyr, dissolve the Valkyrie shields, and weaken the kingdom in preparation for invasion. Payment schedules, meeting locations, instructions for capturing specific warriors. One letter made Kyra's blood run cold. The Luna suspects. She has been testing her food, growing paranoid. I have increased the dosage. She will be dead within weeks. Once she is gone, I will present the forged dissolution order. Darian is too consumed by grief to question it. The shields will scatter, and your men can begin captures. Remember our agreement. I receive position as Luna of Shadowfen and control of the Eastern Territories once you conquer Shadow Peak. Do not fail me in this. Seraphine. We have her, Tessa breathed. This is absolute proof. We have more than that. Lisa examined the coins. These are payment. Seraphine was paid in Shadowfen gold to betray her Luna and her kingdom. Kyra carefully collected everything, wrapping the evidence in cloth. We take this to the king immediately. No more speculation. No more circumstantial patterns. This is proof that will stand before any council. They moved swiftly through the castle corridors, drawing curious looks from servants and guards. Word had spread that something significant was happening. The Valkyries had returned. The king had granted them unusual authority. Change was coming to Shadow Peak, and everyone could sense it. They found Darian in the throne room, meeting with his council of 5 nobles. Seraphine stood at his right hand, her position of influence on full display. Her green eyes narrowed when she saw Kara enter with her companions. Your Majesty, Kara said, her voice carrying across the chamber. I apologize for the interruption, but there is a matter that cannot wait. One of the counselors, Lord Harwick, a corpulent man with expensive rings on every finger, huffed indignantly. His Majesty is conducting official business. Whatever concerns you have can wait until... It cannot wait. Kara moved forward, ignoring protocol. Your Majesty, I have discovered evidence regarding Luna Valkyr's death. Evidence that proves she was murdered. The room erupted. Counselors shouted questions. Guards moved to intercept Kara. But Darian raised one hand, and silence fell instantly. Everyone out, he said quietly, except Lady Kyra and her companions. And Seraphine, you stay as well. Your Majesty, this is highly irregular, Lord Harwick protested. I set out. The Alpha command in Darian's voice brooked no argument. The counselors fled, leaving only the king, Seraphine, and the 4 Valkyries. Seraphine's composure remained perfect, but Kara saw her pulse jumping in her throat. This is quite dramatic, Kara. What fantastical evidence do you claim to have found? Evidence that Valkyr herself preserved for discovery after her death. Kyra placed the wrapped bundle on the table before Darian. She knew someone was poisoning her. She documented her suspicions in her private journal, and she hid proof, where only those who read her final words would find it. Darian unwrapped the cloth with steady hands. His face went pale as he examined the contents. The vial, the letters, the coins. He read each document slowly, his expression growing colder with every line. This is your handwriting, Seraphine, he said finally, his voice devoid of emotion. I have seen it often enough to recognize it immediately. Those letters could be forged, Seraphine said, but her voice had lost its confidence. Kyra hates me. She has motive to fabricate evidence. Did she also fabricate Valkyr's journal? The one where my mate documented her suspicions? Where she wrote about feeling ill after consuming food and drink you had handled? Darian stood, his full height making him seem to tower over them all. Did she forge the vial containing poison residue, or counterfeit coins from Shadowfen bearing dates from 2 years ago? Your Majesty, I served loyally for 15 years. Would I throw that away for power, for position, for the promise of becoming Luna to an Alpha who would conquer my kingdom? Darian's control slipped. His eyes flashed gold, his wolf rising dangerously close to the surface. You murdered my mate. You watched her die slowly over weeks while pretending concern. You stood at her funeral and wept false tears. Then you used forged documents to destroy everything she built. Seraphine's mask finally cracked. Rage and fear warred in her expression. She never appreciated me. 15 years I stood in her shadow while she received all the glory, all the praise. I was smarter, more strategic, but she was Luna, and I was merely her second. Roderick saw my worth. He offered me what you and Valkyr never would, true power. You confess then. Darian's voice had gone deadly quiet. I confess to nothing that matters. Valkyr is dead. The shields are scattered, and Roderick's forces are already positioning for invasion. Even if you execute me, the plan proceeds. Kyra felt her wolf surge forward. How many warriors did you sell? How many of our sisters did you hand over to be enslaved? Seraphine turned her cold gaze on Kyra. 83. I identified the strongest, most dangerous. The ones who might investigate or ask uncomfortable questions. Roderick's men captured them. The slave markets paid well for trained warriors. Everyone profited except you fools who believed in honor and loyalty. Bryn lunged, but Kyra caught her arm. Not yet. She will face justice. Justice? Seraphine laughed bitterly. There is no justice. There is only power, and those smart enough to seize it. Valkyr was weak. She believed in fairness and compassion. That weakness made her easy to kill. Darian moved faster than Kyra could track. One moment he stood by the table. The next, his hand wrapped around Seraphine's throat, lifting her off the ground. You dare call her weak? He growled, his voice more wolf than human. Valkyr had more strength in one finger than you possess in your entire corrupted soul. She trusted you. She called you sister. And you repaid that trust by poisoning her slowly enough to maximize suffering. Seraphine clawed at his grip, her face turning purple. Kyra should intervene, should remind the king that they needed Seraphine alive to testify, to reveal Roderick's plans. But part of her wanted to watch Valkyr's murderer die. Darian, she said quietly. Not like this. Valkyr would want her to face trial, to be exposed publicly for what she is. The king's hand trembled. For a heartbeat, Kyra thought he would snap Seraphine's neck anyway. Then he released her, letting her crumple to the floor, gasping. You are right, he said, his voice rough. She deserves worse than a quick death. He called for guards. Take her to the dungeons. Silver chains. Constant watch. If she escapes, those responsible will join her in a cell. Guards flooded in, binding Seraphine with chains that burned her skin. She did not struggle, merely smiled with blood-stained teeth. You have evidence of my crimes, she said, as they dragged her toward the door. But evidence will not stop what is coming. Roderick has 2,000 soldiers. Your forces are scattered, weakened. The shields are still broken. In 3 days, he attacks. And when he does, this kingdom falls. The door slammed shut behind her, leaving silence in her wake. 3 days, Darian said quietly. She gave us 3 days. Deliberately, Kyra realized. She wants us to know the attack is coming, but believes we cannot mobilize adequate defense in time. Can we? Tessa asked. Darian moved to the castle's war table, studying maps of his territory. Our full military strength is spread across 3 garrisons. Recalling them requires 2 days minimum. We have perhaps 800 soldiers stationed here at Shadow Peak, against 2,000 experienced warriors from Shadowfen. Those are poor odds. You have more than 800 soldiers, Kyra said firmly. You have 34 Valkyries ready to fight. And if we send word immediately to the warriors who dispersed, if we call them home, how many more could reach us in 3 days? Sending messages? Waiting for responses? Coordinating return journeys? Darian calculated quickly. Perhaps another 40, maybe 50. That gives us roughly 900 defenders against 2,000 attackers. Still poor odds. Better than 800 against 2,000, and we have advantages Roderick does not expect. He believes the shields remain scattered and broken. He does not know we have discovered Seraphine's treachery. He thinks his invasion will catch us completely unprepared. Bryn stepped forward. We know this castle better than any outsiders. We know its defenses, its weak points, its hidden passages. 34 trained warriors can hold choke points that would require hundreds of regular soldiers. And we fight for something Roderick's mercenaries do not, Lisa added. We fight for our home, for justice, for Valkyr's memory. That gives us strength no amount of gold can buy. Darian studied the 4 women standing before him. Then he straightened, decision crystallizing in his golden eyes. Kara, I am reinstating the Valkyrie shields effective immediately. Full authority, full resources. You are promoted to general with command over all female warriors in my service. Recruit, train, coordinate. Use whatever you need. Your Majesty, you were right about everything. Seraphine, the conspiracy, the threat we face. You pieced together truth from fragments when everyone else remained blind. Valkyr chose wisely when she marked you as special. I will not make the mistake of underestimating you as others have. Warmth flooded through Kara's chest, not just from the promotion, though that mattered, but from the trust Darian placed in her. The recognition that she was more than just a grieving warrior seeking vengeance. I will not fail you, she promised. I know. His expression softened slightly. Because you are you, strong where others break, determined where others surrender. Valkyr saw that in you years ago. I am only now beginning to understand what she knew all along. Their eyes held for a moment that stretched too long, weighted with unspoken things. Then reality crashed back. 3 days, Kara said. We have 3 days to transform scattered warriors into a coordinated defense force. 3 days to turn poor odds into possible victory. 3 days to prove that the Valkyrie shields are not broken. Then we should stop wasting time. Darian moved with renewed purpose. Send riders to every former shield you can locate. Call them home. Tell them their Luna was murdered, and her killer has confessed. Tell them we fight in 3 days to defend everything Valkyr built. And if they do not come, they will come, because they are warriors, and warriors do not abandon their sisters when battle calls. Kyra bowed formally, then turned to leave with her companions, but Darian's voice stopped her at the door. Kyra, thank you, for being stubborn enough to seek truth when I was too blind to see it, for being strong enough to stand when I was too weak. Valkyr would be proud of you. I know I am. She met his eyes one final time, saw something there that made her breath catch. Then she left to prepare for war. 3 days until Roderick attacked. 3 days to gather warriors. 3 days to transform from scattered survivors into the force Valkyr had always believed they could be. Chapter 6. Blood and Silver. The dungeon beneath Shadow Peak Castle smelled of damp stone and despair. Kyra descended the narrow spiral stairs, a torch in one hand, and cold determination in her heart. 2 guards flanked her, their expressions carefully neutral as they approached the cell holding Seraphine Ravenmore. The traitor sat on a stone bench, silver chains binding her wrists and ankles. The metal had burned angry welts into her skin, suppressing her wolf and leaving her trapped in human form. When Kyra entered, Seraphine looked up with eyes that held no remorse, only cold calculation. "Come to gloat?" Seraphine asked. "How noble of you. I came to ask questions. Roderick's invasion begins in 3 days. You will tell me his strategy, his troop placement, his weaknesses. Will I?" Seraphine laughed, though the sound came out strained. "And what makes you think I would betray my ally? Because he left you to face justice alone. Because he did not attempt rescue when we arrested you. Because you are worth nothing to him now except as a distraction." Kara moved closer, her voice dropping to deadly quiet. "He used you, Seraphine, just as you used others. Now you will die in these chains while he conquers the kingdom you helped him invade, unless you give me information that proves useful." Something flickered in Seraphine's expression. Fear, perhaps, or the dawning realization that her carefully laid plans had crumbled to dust. "What would I receive in exchange for cooperation? A cleaner death than you deserve. Execution by sword instead of public hanging. Your body returned to your family for proper burial rather than thrown in an unmarked grave. Such generous mercy. It is more than you gave Valkyr. She suffered for weeks while you watched her die." Kara's wolf stirred, demanding violence. "Tell me about Roderick's strategy." Seraphine was silent for a long moment. Then she sighed, shoulders sagging in defeat. He attacks at dawn on the third day. 2,000 soldiers divided into 3 forces. The main army strikes the southern gates while smaller contingents target the eastern and western walls simultaneously. He expects to breach defenses within hours. What weaponry? Standard siege equipment. Battering rams, scaling ladders, archers. Nothing exotic. Roderick relies on overwhelming numbers rather than innovation. His commanders? 4 captains lead the divisions. I only met 2 personally. Gavril commands the southern force. Ruthless, but predictable. He favors direct assault over subtlety. The others I never learned. Kyra absorbed the information, weighing its usefulness. What about supply lines? Where does his army stage before the attack? The Thornwood region, 3 miles south of your border. They have been gathering for weeks, disguised as merchant caravans and traveling bands. By tomorrow, all forces will be in position. You planned this well. I planned it perfectly. Your discovery of the evidence was the only variable I failed to anticipate. I underestimated your persistence. Seraphine's green eyes studied Kara with something resembling respect. Valkyr trained you better than I realized. She trained all of us well. You simply chose to forget those lessons. I chose power over sentiment. In another world, that choice would have made me a queen. In this world, it makes you a corpse. Kara turned to leave. Your information will be verified. If accurate, you will receive the mercy promised. If you lied, your death will take days rather than minutes. Kara, Seraphine's voice stopped her at the cell door. For what it is worth, I did admire Valkyr once, before the envy consumed everything else. She deserved better than what I gave her. Yes, she did. Kara left without looking back. Above ground, preparations for battle consumed the castle. Messengers had ridden hard to reach scattered Valkyries, and warriors began arriving throughout the day. 20 came the first day, 18 more the second. By the third morning, 43 former shields stood ready to fight, bringing the total defensive force to 34 rescued warriors, plus 43 recalled ones. 77 Valkyries in total, armed and armored in the black and silver that had once marked them as Valkyr's elite guard. Kyra stood on the battlements overlooking the training yard, watching her sisters run through combat drills. Tessa led one group through shield formations. Bryn demonstrated sword techniques to newer recruits. Lysa coordinated archers, her commands sharp and efficient. They move well together, Darian said, joining her. He wore full battle armor now, black steel engraved with the royal crest. His black beard was neatly trimmed, and his golden eyes tracked the warriors below with approval. Better than my regular soldiers in some formations. Valkyr drilled us until we could fight as one. 77 is a fraction of what we once were, but we remember the training. 77 exceptional warriors are worth 300 average ones. Darian's shoulder brushed hers as they stood side by side. Combined with my 800 soldiers, we have fighting strength closer to 1,100. Against 2,000, those are still difficult odds, but no longer impossible. Seraphine gave me intelligence about Roderick's strategy. 3-pronged assault at dawn. Southern gates receive the main force. She could be lying to mislead us. She could, but her information aligns with what our scouts report. Increased activity in Thornwood, forces massing south of our border. Either she told truth, or Roderick's preparations are coincidentally exactly as she described. Darian nodded slowly. We concentrate defenses at the southern gates, then. Place your best warriors at choke points on eastern and western walls. If Roderick divides his forces as she claims, we can hold. If, yes, if. He turned to face her directly. Kyra, there is something I must say before battle begins, in case tomorrow brings death rather than victory. Her breath caught. Your Majesty, Darian. When we stand together on these walls, call me Darian. He took her hand, his touch gentle despite his warrior's calluses. I know the timing is terrible. I know you believe I dishonor Valkyr's memory by feeling what I feel. But if I die tomorrow without speaking truth, I will regret it in whatever afterlife awaits. Do not speak of dying. Everyone who fights speaks of dying. It makes us honest. His thumb traced circles on her palm. You are extraordinary. Not because you remind me of Valkyr, but because you are completely yourself. Strong, stubborn, brilliant in ways I am only beginning to understand. I watch you command warriors and see someone born to lead. I watch you piece together conspiracies and see a mind sharper than any advisor I employ. I watch you simply exist, and I feel something I thought died with my mate. Darian, I cannot, you need not respond. I ask nothing from you except that you survive tomorrow. Survive, and we will speak more when battle is done. But know this, Cara Thornvale, if I fall defending these walls, my last thought will be gratitude that I met you, that you showed me I could feel something beyond grief. Before she could respond, before she could process the words, he leaned forward and kissed her. Gentle but certain, a claiming that sent heat racing through her veins. Her wolf surged forward, recognizing something fundamental in his touch. She kissed him back, just for a moment, just long enough to acknowledge what existed between them. Then she pulled away, her heart hammering against her ribs. If you die tomorrow, she said quietly, I will march into whatever hell holds you and drag you back. We have unfinished business, King Darian Whitefang. Do not think death releases you from it. He smiled, genuine warmth lighting his features for the first time since Valkyr's death. Yes, General. The moment shattered as horns sounded from the southern watchtower. 3 long blasts, the signal for approaching army. They come early, Darian said, all softness vanishing as he transformed into the warrior king. Roderick changed his timing. Cara ran to the southern wall, Darian matching her stride. Below, torchlight illuminated the forest edge. Hundreds of torches, maybe thousands, forming a line that stretched across the entire southern approach. He attacks now, she breathed. At night, when we expected dawn, Seraphine's information was deliberately wrong. She bought Roderick one final advantage. Darian's voice carried across the battlements. All forces to defensive positions, archers to the walls, infantry to the gates, Valkyries to eastern and western choke points. We hold until dawn, then counterattack when they are exhausted. Warriors flooded into position with training honed efficiency. Kyra found her sisters gathering at their assigned locations. Tessa commanded the eastern wall with 15 Valkyries. Bryn held the west with 16. That left 46, including Kyra herself, to reinforce wherever the breach came. The enemy reached the walls as midnight bells tolled. Scaling ladders crashed against stone. Battering rams pounded the southern gates. Arrows filled the air, black shafts blotting out starlight. Kyra fought alongside her sisters, her sword finding throats and hearts with lethal precision. An attacker cleared the eastern wall. She beheaded him before he could sound alarm. Another followed. Bryn's blade took him in the chest. Hours blurred into continuous violence. Kyra lost track of how many she killed. 10? 20? Her arms burned with exhaustion. Blood slicked her hands, making her sword grip treacherous. The southern gates cracked under relentless assault. Wood splintered, metal bent. The barrier would not hold much longer. Fall back to second defensive line, Darian commanded, fighting 3 enemies simultaneously. Let them through, then collapse the tunnel behind them. It was desperate strategy. Allow the enemy inside to create a kill zone. Kyra had seen it work in training. She had never imagined deploying it in actual battle with lives depending on precision timing. The gates burst inward. Enemy soldiers flooded through. Darian's forces retreated in controlled chaos, funneling invaders into the predetermined kill zone. Then, at his signal, support columns were cut. The tunnel ceiling collapsed, crushing dozens and sealing off reinforcements. But hundreds had made it through. The courtyard became a churning mass of bodies. Steel rang against steel. Men screamed. Wolves howled as shifters abandoned human form for their more lethal counterparts. Kyra lost Darian in the chaos. One moment he fought beside her. The next, enemy warriors separated them. Panic clawed at her throat. Then she saw him, surrounded by 8 soldiers, bleeding from multiple wounds, but still standing. Still fighting with the ferocity of an alpha king defending his territory. Kyra shifted mid-stride. Her silver wolf erupted from her skin, larger and faster than she remembered. Something was different. Power flowed through her limbs, strength beyond anything she had known. Valkyr's blessing, the gift given 5 years ago, activated by mortal danger. She tore through enemies like they were made of parchment. Her jaws crushed throats. Her claws rent armor. She reached Darian as an enemy blade aimed for his exposed back. Kyra intercepted, taking the blow across her shoulder. Pain exploded, but her wolf ignored it. She killed the attacker, then positioned herself between Darian and the remaining soldiers. "Kyra, no!" Darian's protest died as he saw her wolf. Saw the silver fur marked with glowing lunar symbols that had not existed before. Saw power radiating from her that made his own alpha presence feel diminished. The enemy soldiers saw it too. Several retreated. Others attacked with desperate ferocity born of fear. Kyra met them head-on. The wolf Valkyr had blessed years ago, held dormant until the moment Kyra needed it most, was finally fully awake. And it was glorious. She fought with abandon, protecting Darian while he recovered. Fought until the courtyard ran red. Fought until the enemy soldiers who had breached the gates lay dead or fleeing. Dawn broke over the battlefield, painting everything in shades of crimson and gold. Roderick's remaining forces, seeing their advance faltering, began orderly retreat. They had failed to take the castle. The invasion had crumbled. Kyra transformed back to human form, collapsing from exhaustion and blood loss. Strong arms caught her before she hit the ground. "I have you," Darian murmured, cradling her against his chest. "You magnificent, impossible woman. I have you." "Did we win?" Her voice came out slurred. "We survived. That counts as victory." Healers arrived, tending wounded. The courtyard slowly transformed from battleground to hospital. Kyra let them clean and bandage her shoulder. But her eyes never left Darian. He knelt beside her, his armor dented and blood-stained, but his golden eyes clear. "That transformation. The marks on your wolf, that was Valkyr's gift? She blessed me 5 years ago. I never understood what it meant until tonight. She made you her heir, gave you power that would activate when you truly needed it." Darian's hand found hers. She knew. Somehow she knew you would be the one to protect what she built. Kyra looked across the courtyard at her sisters. Tired, bloodied, but alive. 77 Valkyries had held against impossible odds. 77 warriors had proven the shields were not broken. "We won," she said again, this time with certainty. "We won," Darian agreed. "And now we make sure no one ever tries to destroy what you and Valkyr created again." Chapter 7. Under the Full Moon. The healers worked through 3 days tending to wounded. Kyra's shoulder required stitches that would scar, a permanent reminder of the battle where Valkyr's blessing had fully manifested. She bore the marks without complaint, knowing that dozens of her sisters carried far worse injuries. 3 Valkyries had fallen during the fighting. Their bodies were laid out in the castle's memorial hall, awaiting funeral rites. Kyra stood vigil beside them, memorizing faces she wished she could have saved. They died defending what Valkyr built. Tessa said quietly, joining her. She would have honored their sacrifice. She would have preferred they lived. Kyra touched each woman's forehead in blessing. But yes, she would have been proud of how they fought. News of smaller victories trickled in alongside the grief. Among them came word Kyra chose to carry herself. "Your brother was found," she told Tessa later that evening on the inner wall, where the other woman stood staring out at the dark. "A patrol recovered him near the southern farms. They abandoned him once they no longer needed a leash on you. He is thin, but alive. Safe." Tessa's knees buckled. Kyra caught her before she hit stone. The sob that tore free was raw and broken, months of terror and shame spilling out. "They used us," Tessa whispered. "Both of us." "Yes," Kyra said. "But you helped end them. That matters. Take the time to heal, then help me rebuild what they tried to break." Tessa nodded against her shoulder, clutching Kyra's forearm like a lifeline. For the first time since the Thornwood, she let herself believe she was no longer owned by anyone's threat. Across the castle, Seraphine awaited execution. The trial had been swift, the evidence overwhelming. Nobles who had once questioned Kyra's accusations now demanded the traitor's head. Public sentiment ran murderous. "His Majesty requests your presence," a guard announced. In the throne room, Kyra found Darian surrounded by members of his council. Maps spread across tables detailing troop movements and border positions. He looked up when she entered, and something warm flickered in his golden eyes, despite the grave circumstances. "General Kyra," he said formally, though she heard the affection beneath the title. "We have received word from Shadowfen. Alpha Roderick wishes to negotiate terms." Lord Harwick, the corpulent counselor, snorted derisively. "He attacked our castle, killed our soldiers, and now expects mercy. Execute his messengers and prepare for total war. If we execute messengers, we violate every code of diplomatic conduct." Another counselor argued. "That makes us no better than him. What terms does he offer?" Kyra asked. Darian unrolled a parchment. "He surrenders himself for trial in exchange for clemency toward his soldiers. He claims Seraphine manipulated him into the attack, that he believed our kingdom was planning to invade Shadowfen first. He offers reparations and a formal alliance." "He lies," Kyra said flatly. "The letters we found show he and Seraphine planned this conspiracy for 3 years. He knew exactly what he was doing." "I agree. But his offer presents an opportunity. If we accept his surrender, we gain leverage over Shadowfen without additional bloodshed. If we reject it, we commit to a war that could last years and cost thousands more lives." The council debated for hours. Kyra listened, offering tactical input when requested. Eventually, consensus emerged. They would accept Roderick's surrender, on condition that Shadowfen territory be placed under Shadowpeak's protection for 5 years. During that time, Roderick's successor would rule under Darian's oversight, and Shadowfen soldiers would serve in joint defense forces. "It is not perfect," Darian acknowledged, "but it ends the threat without destroying Shadowfen completely. Their people are not responsible for their Alpha's crimes." "And what of Roderick himself?" Kyra asked. "He stands trial alongside Seraphine. If found guilty, he dies, but at least his pack survives." 3 weeks after the battle, Shadowpeak held a double execution. The entire kingdom gathered to witness justice for Luna Valkyr's murder and the attempted conquest of their lands. Seraphine walked to the scaffold with her head high, refusing to show fear even as silver chains bound her. Roderick came next, his expression resigned. They were not granted final words. The crimes spoke loudly enough. Kyra stood among the Valkyries, all 74 survivors wearing ceremonial black armor. They had lost 3 sisters in battle, but 41 more had been recovered from various slave markets across 5 kingdoms. The order now numbered 115 warriors, more than half their original strength. The executioner's blade fell twice. Justice, cold and absolute. Afterward, Darian found Kyra on the eastern battlements, watching the sun set over mountains that marked the border with former enemy territory. "It is done," he said simply. "Yes, though it feels hollow. Valkyr is still dead. Our sisters who were murdered or enslaved remain gone. We have justice, but not restoration. Justice is sometimes all we get." Darian stood beside her, their shoulders touching in comfortable intimacy. "But we can build something better moving forward. The Valkyrie shields are officially reinstated. I have allocated funding for expansion. We will reach 200 warriors again within 2 years. And what of us?" The question emerged before Kyra could stop it. "We have not spoken since the battle, since you kissed me on these very walls. I did not wish to pressure you while we dealt with executions and political negotiations." Darian turned to face her directly. "But now that immediate crises have passed, I must know. Was that kiss merely heat of the moment? Or did it mean what I hoped?" Kyra took a breath, gathering courage. "I spent weeks believing wanting you dishonored Valkyr's memory. That feeling anything for her mate made me a traitor to everything she represented. And now I realize Valkyr would be furious with me for thinking so small. She trained us to be strong, to claim what we wanted, to never apologize for our hearts. Kara met his eyes steadily. I want you, Darian. Not as replacement for Valkyr. Not because you are king, but because you are you. Stubborn, brave, occasionally infuriating, and somehow able to see me as more than just another warrior. Relief flooded his expression. I was prepared to wait years if necessary, to court you properly with flowers and poetry and all the traditional nonsense. I do not need flowers. I need honesty and partnership. Can you give me those? Without hesitation, he cupped her face with calloused hands. Kara Thornvale, I claim you as my mate if you will have me, not through political arrangement or diplomatic necessity, but because you have become essential to my existence, because I cannot imagine ruling this kingdom without you beside me. Then claim me properly, under the full moon, as tradition demands. Darian's eyes widened. Tonight is the full moon. Are you certain? I have never been more certain of anything. The claiming ritual took place in Valkyr's memorial grove, the sacred space where the first Luna had blessed Kyra years ago. All 115 Valkyries attended as witnesses, forming a circle around the clearing. Kyra wore simple white robes, her dark hair unbound for the first time in months. Darian stood opposite her in traditional ceremonial garb, his black beard freshly trimmed and his golden eyes reflecting moonlight. The castle's high priest began the ancient rites, speaking words in the old tongue that bound wolf to wolf, heart to heart. When he finished, Darian stepped forward. I claim Kara Thornvale as my mate, my equal, my Luna. Let all witness this bond. I claim Darian Whitefang as my mate, my equal, my king. Let all witness this bond. They moved together, and Darian's teeth found the curve of Kara's neck. The bite was precise, claiming without causing excessive pain. She felt the bond snap into place, a connection that wove through her consciousness and anchored her to him on levels beyond the physical. Then she transformed partially, allowing her wolf's teeth to emerge. She marked him in return, establishing the equality she had demanded. Not subject to king, not warrior to alpha, but equal partners bound by choice rather than obligation. The bond flared bright, visible as silver light that surrounded them both. Power rushed through Kyra, Darian's alpha strength mingling with the blessing Valkyr had given her. Together, they created something new, something balanced. When the light faded, they stood before the assembled warriors as true mates. The Valkyries howled approval, their wolf voices rising in celebration that echoed across the mountain peaks. Afterward, as the gathered witnesses departed for the feast prepared in their honor, Darian drew Kyra close. How does it feel? He asked. Being Luna? Strange. Terrifying. Right. She touched the mark on his neck, feeling the bond pulse between them. I do not wish to replace Valkyr in people's hearts. You will not replace her. You will honor her by becoming who you are meant to be. She trained you for this, Kara. Everything she taught you, every lesson she drilled into your mind, was preparation for the role you now hold. Will I be worthy of it? You already are. Darian kissed her forehead. You fought impossible odds and won. You uncovered conspiracy that saved the kingdom. You led warriors into battle and brought them home alive. If that is not worthy, I do not know what is. They walked back to the castle together, hands intertwined. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Governing, rebuilding, expanding the shields. But tonight, they were simply mates enjoying peace hard won. In the memorial grove behind them, moonlight touched Valkyr's shrine, and for just a moment, the air shimmered with silver light that might have been blessing or might have been moonbeams. Either way, Kara felt approval wash over her. The Luna who had trained her, who had blessed her, who had given her purpose, was at peace. The shields would endure, the kingdom was safe, and Kara Thornvale, once a broken orphan living on the streets, was now Luna of Shadow Peak, general of the Valkyrie shields, mate to the Alpha King. She had claimed her destiny, and she would defend it with everything she was. Chapter 8. The Luna's Promise. 5 months passed in the rhythm of rebuilding and renewal. Kyra stood in what had once been Valkyr's private training yard, now expanded to accommodate 112 warriors. The Valkyrie shields had grown beyond their pre-dissolution numbers, attracting recruits from across the kingdom who sought the honor of serving under the Luna, who had survived slavery and led her sisters through impossible battle. Morning drills began before dawn, as they always had. Kyra moved through the ranks, correcting stances and demonstrating techniques that Valkyr had perfected over decades. The muscle memory of those early training sessions remained vivid, guiding her hands as she adjusted a young recruit's grip on her practice sword. "Keep your elbow aligned with your shoulder," she instructed. "The power comes from your core, not your arm." Again, the recruit complied, executing the strike with improved precision. Kyra nodded approval before moving to the next pair of sparring warriors. Tessa commanded the Eastern training grounds now, working with more advanced fighters on tactical formations. Bryn oversaw the archery ranges, her natural talent with a bow making her the obvious choice. Lysa managed the quartermaster's office, ensuring every warrior had proper equipment and supplies. They had transformed from scattered survivors into something formidable once more. The Valkyrie shields stood as proof that determination could overcome even systematic destruction. "Impressive," Darian's voice carried across the yard. He stood at the entrance, watching with the satisfaction of a king witnessing his realm's strength. "Though I should not be surprised. You have always exceeded expectations." Kyra called for the warriors to continue their drills, then walked to meet him. 5 months of marriage had made his presence feel natural rather than startling. The mate bond hummed between them constantly, a connection that brought comfort rather than distraction. "You came to watch training?" she asked, noting he wore formal council robes rather than his usual comfortable attire. "I came to steal my Luna for a private conversation." His golden eyes held something she could not quite interpret. Concern, perhaps. Or anticipation. They walked to the castle's eastern tower, the same chamber where Valkyr had once spoken to Kara about succession planning. The circular room now served as Kyra's private office, filled with tactical scrolls and recruitment records. Darian closed the door behind them, his expression growing serious. "We need to discuss something important. And before you argue, know that I have consulted healers, examined all relevant precedents, and prepared comprehensive contingency plans." Kyra's wolf stirred uneasily. "What has happened?" "You are pregnant." The words hung in the air between them. Kyra's hand went unconsciously to her abdomen, where she had noticed changes over the past 2 weeks. Subtle shifts in her body's rhythms. Heightened sensitivity to sense. A persistent exhaustion that even rest did not fully cure. "How long have you known?" she asked quietly. "I suspected for 3 weeks. My wolf could sense the change in your scent, but I wanted confirmation from the healers before saying anything. They examined you while you slept last night. Forgive the intrusion, but I needed certainty. You should have asked permission." "I should have. I apologize." Darian moved closer, his hands finding hers. "But Kara, you are carrying our child, our heir. This changes everything." Fear and wonder warred within her. A child. She was 27 years old, Luna of the kingdom, general of the Valkyrie shields, and about to become a mother. The responsibility felt crushing. "I cannot abandon my duties," she said firmly. "The shields need leadership. We are still recruiting, still training new warriors. If I step back now, you will not step back. You will adapt." Darian's voice carried absolute certainty. Valkyr commanded warriors while pregnant with the child she lost. Other Lunas throughout history have balanced motherhood and military leadership. You will not be the first to manage both, but I will be scrutinized. The nobles already question whether a warrior can truly be Luna. If they perceive weakness, then they will learn that pregnancy is not weakness, that bearing children while maintaining strength proves capability rather than diminishing it. He cupped her face gently. "You are afraid. I understand. But you are also the woman who survived slavery, uncovered conspiracy, and led warriors through siege. A child will not break you." Kara leaned into his touch, drawing comfort from the mate bond that pulsed between them. "When Valkyr lost her child, it nearly destroyed her. She never spoke of it openly. But I saw her grief. What if You will not. The circumstances are different. Valkyr was poisoned while pregnant, though no one realized it at the time. The toxins Seraphine used caused the miscarriage that devastated her. You face no such threat. Our enemies are defeated. The kingdom is secure. You will carry this child to term and deliver safely. You cannot know that. No, but I believe it with everything I am. Darian's hands moved to rest on her still flat abdomen. This child represents hope. Proof that we have built something worth preserving. That Valkyr's legacy continues not just through the shields, but through the family we create. Tears pricked Kara's eyes. She had not allowed herself to cry in months, maintaining the stoic composure expected of a warrior Luna. But here, in private with her mate, she let emotion surface. I am terrified, she whispered, of failing, of being inadequate, of proving everyone who doubted me correct. You are the least inadequate person I have ever known. Darian pulled her close, letting her rest against his chest. And this child will have the fiercest mother in the kingdom. She will grow up knowing what true strength looks like. She, the healers believe so, though it is early to be certain. But my instincts say daughter. A girl who will be raised by warriors, taught by the best fighters in 5 kingdoms, and shown from birth that women can be anything they choose. The image took shape in Kyra's mind. A daughter, with her dark hair and Darian's golden eyes. A child who would never doubt her worth, never question her right to claim space and power. A future Luna who would lead the Valkyrie shields into generations Kyra could barely imagine. We should name her Valkyr, Kyra said suddenly, to honor the Luna who made all of this possible. Darian pulled back to meet her eyes. Are you certain? That is a significant legacy to place on a child. She will carry it well, and she will know the story of the woman who built something worth dying for, who trained warriors to be strong, even when the world told them they were weak. Our daughter will understand that she stands on the shoulders of someone remarkable. Then Valkyr she will be. Darian kissed her forehead with infinite tenderness. Our daughter, the next generation. They stood together in the circular tower room, watching the sun climb higher over the mountains. Below, the training yard echoed with the sounds of warriors perfecting their craft. The castle bustled with activity as servants prepared for the day's work. Life continued its steady rhythm, unchanged by the news that would soon transform everything. That evening, Kyra gathered the Valkyrie shields in the great hall. 112 women assembled, their black and silver armor gleaming in torchlight. They represented every region of the kingdom, every social class, united by their commitment to the ideals Valkyr had instilled. Kyra stood on the raised platform, where Luna Valkyr had once addressed them, where Seraphine had announced the Order's dissolution, where so much history had unfolded. Sisters, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. 5 months ago, we were scattered and broken. The order that defined us had been destroyed through treachery. Many of us had been sold into slavery. We had every reason to surrender, to accept that what Valkyr built was gone forever. She paused, letting the words settle. But we did not surrender. We fought. We survived. We uncovered the truth and brought traitors to justice. We defended this castle against impossible odds and proved that the Valkyrie shields cannot be destroyed by conspiracy or force. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled warriors. Today, I bring news that will shape our future. I am pregnant with the king's child. In approximately 7 months, I will deliver a daughter who will be named Valkyr, in honor of the Luna who trained us all. Silence, then eruption. Warriors cheered, stamping feet and banging fists against armor in celebration. The sound shook the rafters. Kyra waited for quiet before continuing. Some will see this as weakness. Some will claim that motherhood makes me unfit to lead warriors. To those who think so, I say this. Valkyr herself bore children while commanding armies. Countless Lunas throughout history have balanced motherhood and military leadership. I will do the same. And our daughter will grow up knowing that women need not choose between family and purpose. We can claim both. More cheers, louder this time. Tessa stood, her voice rising above the noise. We stand with you, Luna. Today, tomorrow, and every day after. The shields endure. The shields endure. The warriors echoed as one. Kyra felt emotion swell in her chest. These women had followed her through hell and emerged stronger. They had proven their loyalty in blood and steel. They would stand beside her through the challenges ahead. "Then let us continue the work Valkyr began," she said. "Let us train the next generation of warriors. Let us show the kingdom what strength truly means. And let us build a future where our daughters need never doubt their worth." The celebration lasted hours. Wine flowed freely. Warriors shared stories of battles fought and victories won. Tessa recounted the market rescue with embellishments that made Darian seem even more impressive than reality. Bryn demonstrated archery tricks that drew applause. Through it all, Kara sat with her hand resting on her abdomen, where a new life grew. A daughter who would inherit more than just a kingdom. She would inherit the legacy of warriors who refused to break, the courage of a Luna who built something worth preserving, the determination of women who had survived impossible odds. Later, in the royal chambers she shared with Darian, Kyra stood before the mirror and studied her reflection. She looked different somehow. Not physically, not yet. But there was a quality to her expression that had not existed before. Certainty, perhaps. Or peace. "You are radiant," Darian said, appearing behind her. His hands settled on her shoulders, his reflection joining hers in the mirror. "Pregnancy suits you. I am barely pregnant. Give me 3 months before making that assessment. I will think you beautiful at every stage." He kissed her neck, just above the claiming mark he had left during their mating ritual. "And I will ensure you have everything needed. Healers on constant standby. Guards who understand your training schedule must continue. Advisors who respect that you are Luna first, pregnant second. I am both simultaneously." "Yes, but one does not diminish the other." Darian turned her to face him. "You asked earlier if you would be adequate. Let me be clear. You are extraordinary. You have exceeded every challenge presented. This child is fortunate to have you as her mother, and you as her father. I will teach her to be strong. You will teach her to be fierce. Together, we will raise a daughter who changes the world." They moved to the bed, lying together in comfortable silence. The mate bond pulsed between them, stronger now with the child growing in Kyra's womb. 3 lives connected, rather than 2. "Do you think Valkyr would approve?" Kara asked into the darkness. "Of us. Of naming our daughter after her. I think she orchestrated all of this from the beginning. She blessed you years ago, knowing you would need that power someday. She hid evidence of conspiracy, where only you would find it. She prepared you to lead the shields when she was gone." Darian's voice carried absolute conviction. "Valkyr chose you as her successor long before either of us realized it. She would be honored that we carry her name forward." Kara closed her eyes, letting exhaustion claim her. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Training to oversee, warriors to recruit, a kingdom to help govern. But tonight, she allowed herself simply to exist. Luna, warrior, mate, and soon-to-be mother. The Valkyrie shields endured. The kingdom was safe, and in 7 months, a new generation would begin. Kara Thornvale had claimed her destiny. Now she would shape her daughters as well. The end.